The massive alien ships dropped out of hyperspace like dark storm clouds blocking the sun. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the sensors light up with hostile contacts. 47 enemy vessels surrounded the human colony world of New Haven, their hulls gleaming silver against the starfield. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Amy Collins from her position at the communications console. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, trying to decode the alien signal. Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a giant mantis and a snake. Its four arms moved in strange patterns while its mouth opened and closed without making any sound humans could understand. The translation software worked overtime, converting the alien language into English text that appeared at the bottom of the screen. "I am Commander Vextel of the Zephyrian Fleet," the message read. "Your species has been judged inferior. You have one standard time unit to surrender your weapons and prepare for integration into our empire. Resistance will result in complete annihilation." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Chief Engineer Pete Davis was checking the ship's power systems. Lieutenant Collins was monitoring communications from the other human ships in the small defense fleet. Weapons Officer Lisa Murphy was running diagnostics on their missile systems. They all looked worried but determined. "How many ships do we have?" Jake asked. 12, sir," Collins replied. "The alien fleet has 47 vessels. Each one is about 3 times the size of our largest ship." Jake studied the tactical display. The odds were terrible. The human ships were fast and maneuverable, but they were completely outgunned. The alien vessels had energy weapons that could cut through human armor like paper. Their shields could absorb direct hits from human missiles without taking damage. "Sir, what should we tell them?" Collins asked. Jake looked at the alien commander's image on the screen. The creature's compound eyes seemed to stare right through him. He thought about the 2 million people living on New Haven below. They had families, children, hopes for the future. The colony had been their home for over 50 years. Something funny occurred to Jake. Here he was, facing impossible odds against an enemy that had probably conquered dozens of worlds. And all he could think about was how his daughter Lucy would react when she found out her dad got to fight space aliens. She would be so excited. That thought made him smile. The smile started small, just a slight upturn at the corners of his mouth. But as Jake thought about Lucy and her excitement, and about how his wife Sarah would probably scold him for being reckless, the smile grew wider. Soon he was grinning openly on the bridge of his ship while staring at an alien armada that could destroy his entire fleet. "Sir?" Collins asked, confused by her captain's expression. "Tell them we decline their generous offer," Jake said, still smiling. "Inform all ships to prepare for battle stations." On the alien flagship, Dr. Kithvara watched the human transmission with growing confusion. She was the fleet's top xenobiologist, specializing in the behavioral patterns of conquered species. In her long career, she had studied the final communications of hundreds of different alien races. They always followed the same pattern: fear, anger, desperation, or resignation. But this human was doing something completely different. The muscles around his mouth and eyes were contracting in a way that didn't match any known threat display. His body language showed no signs of the stress chemicals that other species released when facing superior force. "Commander," she said. "To Vextel, the human leader is exhibiting unusual behavior." "Explain," Vextel replied, his own chemical signals indicating mild interest. "He appears to be experiencing positive emotional stimulation. This contradicts all known patterns of pre-combat behavior." Vextel's forearms moved in a dismissive gesture. "Perhaps their species is too primitive to understand the situation. Begin the attack." Back on the Defiant, Jake was issuing orders to his crew. "Pete, I want maximum power to engines and weapons. Amy, get me a channel to all ships." "Lisa, target their lead vessel." "Sir," Collins said, "I'm getting reports from the other captains. They're all asking for orders." Jake activated the fleet-wide communication system. On his screen, he could see the faces of the other ship commanders. Captain Danny Brooks of the UES Ranger, Commander Alex Stone of the UES Falcon, and 9 others. They all looked tense, waiting for his words. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake said, his smile still visible, "we've got a situation here. The aliens want us to surrender, but I don't think that's going to work out for us." Some of the other captains looked surprised at their fleet commander's casual tone. Captain Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Sir, the odds are pretty bad." "They are." "Indeed," Jake agreed. "But you know what? I've been in bad situations before. Remember the pirate raids near the Centauri system? We were outnumbered there too." Commander Stone leaned forward. "Those were just pirates, sir. These are aliens with technology we don't understand." "True," Drake said, "but they don't understand us either. And I have a feeling that might work in our favor." The alien attack began with a massive energy barrage. Bright beams of purple light lanced out from the Zephyrian ships, targeting the human vessels. The U's Defiant shook as its shields absorbed the impact but held. "Return fire," Jake ordered. The human ships opened up with everything they had. Missiles streaked across space toward the alien fleet. Most were intercepted by defensive systems, but a few got through, causing small explosions on the alien hulls. "Minimal damage to enemy vessels," reported Murphy. "Their armor is incredibly thick." "Then we'll just have to hit them harder," Jake said. He was still smiling, even as his ship bucked and rolled from enemy fire. On the alien flagship, Dr. Kithvara was monitoring human communications with growing alarm. The emotional patterns she was detecting made no sense. Instead of the expected fear responses, the humans seemed to be experiencing something she could only classify as excitement. "Commander," she reported to Vexthal, "the human crews are displaying highly unusual behavior. They appear to be enjoying the combat." "Impossible," Vexthal replied. "No species enjoys facing annihilation." "Perhaps you should observe for yourself," Kithvara suggested. Vexthal activated the monitoring systems and watched the human ships in action. The smaller vessels were dancing around his massive dreadnoughts, firing missiles and energy weapons while performing complex maneuvers. What disturbed him most was the communication chatter between the human ships. "Nice shot, Danny," came a voice from one of the human vessels. "Thanks, Jake. Did you see that explosion? These alien ships sure are pretty when they blow up." Focus on the target, people," said another voice. "But I have to admit, this is kind of fun." Vexthal's chemical signals indicated confusion and growing unease. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that treated warfare as entertainment. The humans were clearly outmatched, their ships taking damage with each exchange, yet they continued to fight with what could only be described as enthusiasm. "Dr. Kithvara," he said, "I want a full analysis of human psychological patterns. There is something very wrong with this species." The battle continued to rage around New Haven, with the human fleet darting between the massive alien ships like angry insects. They couldn't win through firepower, but their strange behavior was already having an unexpected effect on their enemies. The space battle had been going on for 2 hours now, and Dr. Kithvara was starting to feel something she had never experienced before during a conquest: genuine fear. Not fear of losing the battle, that was impossible given their overwhelming advantage. No, she was afraid of the humans themselves. She watched the tactical display as Lieutenant Danny Brooks piloted his fighter through a swarm of alien interceptors. His small ship twisted and rolled between energy beams, occasionally firing back at targets 3 times his size. What made her tentacles twitch with anxiety was the sound coming from his communication channel. "Woohoo, did you see that?" Brooks was shouting over the radio. "I just flew right through their formation. These aliens are slower than I thought." His wingman, Sergeant Lisa Murphy, was laughing as she chased after a damaged enemy fighter. "Danny, you're crazy." But that was awesome. Dr. Kithvara adjusted her translation equipment, certain there must be some error. In her extensive studies of conquered species, she had documented every possible response to superior force. There was the desperate courage of the Krelov, who fought with religious fervor. There was the cold calculation of the Vorthen, who used logic even in their final moments. There was the rage of the Nexari, who attacked with pure hatred, but this was something entirely new. The humans were not fighting out of desperation or duty or anger. They seemed to be having fun. "Sub-Commander Zalthes," she called to her assistant. "Bring me all the psychological profiles from previous conquests. I need to compare human behavior patterns." Zalthes, a younger Zephyrian with bright green scales, quickly accessed the database. "Doctor, I have 17 different species documented. Should I start with the most recent?" "No, go back to the beginning. I want to see if any species has ever displayed positive emotional responses during combat." As Zalthes worked, Dr. Kithvara continued monitoring the human fleet. Captain Jake Morrison was still on the bridge of his flagship, coordinating attacks against the alien dreadnoughts. His smile from earlier had not faded. If anything, it had grown wider. "Amy, tell the Ranger to hit that big ship on the left flank," Morrison was saying. "Pete, can you give me more power to the forward shields? I want to get closer to that command vessel." "Sir," his engineer replied, "getting closer to their flagship is basically suicide. Their main guns will tear us apart." "I know," Morrison said, and then he did something that made Dr. Kithvara's blood run cold. He laughed. "That's what makes it exciting." The UES Defiant accelerated toward the alien command ship, its engines glowing bright blue. Enemy fire concentrated on the approaching vessel, but Morrison kept his ship moving in an unpredictable pattern. Energy beams passed close enough to heat the hull, but somehow the human ship kept coming. "Sir, we're taking heavy damage," reported his weapons officer. "Good," Morrison replied. "That means they're paying attention to us instead of the colony. Lisa, target their main gun. I want to see if we can give them a surprise." On the alien flagship, Commander Vextel was growing increasingly agitated. His chemical signals showed confusion mixed with something approaching panic. The human attack patterns made no tactical sense. They were sacrificing their ships for minimal damage to his fleet, but they were doing it with apparent joy. "Dr. Kithvara," he demanded, "explain this behavior immediately." The xenobiologist looked up from her research, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "Commander, I have studied the final battles of 17 different species. None of them have ever displayed these emotional patterns. The humans appear to be experiencing what our databases classify as enjoyment." "Enjoyment?" Vextel's voice rose in pitch. "How can they enjoy dying?" "I don't think they enjoy dying, sir. I think they enjoy the challenge of not dying." Before Vextel could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The human flagship had gotten close enough to launch its entire missile payload at point-blank range. The Zephyrian shields absorbed most of the impact, but several missiles got through, causing minor damage to the hull. What disturbed Vextel more than the attack was Morrison's reaction. The human captain was visible on the monitor, and he was clapping his hands together like a pleased child. "Direct hit," Morrison was shouting. "Did you see that explosion? Amy, get me a damage report on their ship. I want to know if we scratched their paint." "Sir," came the reply, "sensors show minimal damage to their hull, but their shield strength is down by 12%. "Excellent. Pete, can you get us out of here before they return fire?" The UES Defiant spun away from the alien flagship just as massive energy beams lanced out from its weapons. The human ship's hull glowed red from the heat, but it escaped destruction. Dr. Kithvara watched this exchange with growing horror. The humans had just performed a suicide attack that should have resulted in their complete annihilation. Instead, they had survived and seemed pleased with the minimal damage they had caused. "Sub-Commander," she said to Zalthes, "have you finished analyzing the historical data?" "Yes, Doctor. I found no examples of any species displaying positive emotional responses to combat stress. Most species show fear, anger, or resignation. A few show determination or duty, but none show happiness." Dr. Kithvara studied the tactical display. The human fleet was down to 8 ships now, but the remaining vessels were fighting with even more energy than before. It was as if losing their companions had made them more excited rather than demoralized. She activated her communication system and contacted the other Zephyrian ships. This is Dr. Kithvara to all vessels. I need psychological reports from your monitoring stations. Are you observing unusual behavior from the human crews? The responses came back quickly. Every ship reported the same thing. The humans were acting like they were enjoying themselves. Fighter pilots were laughing while being chased by superior numbers. Ship captains were making jokes while their vessels took damage. Even the seriously wounded humans seemed to maintain positive attitudes. Doctor, came a transmission from the destroyer Vorthka. We intercepted a human communication that might interest you. A damaged human fighter pilot was talking to his base about his injuries. Play it, Dr. Kithvara ordered. The recording crackled with static, but the words were clear. Base, this is Pilot Rachel Green. My ship is pretty beat up and I've got a broken arm, but I'm still operational. Request. Permission to rejoin the fight. Rachel, you need medical attention. Return to base immediately. Come on, sir, I can still fly. This is the most fun I've had in years. You can't make me sit out now. Dr. Kithvara felt her scales change color, a sign of extreme stress in her species. The injured human wanted to continue fighting. She wasn't being forced to continue by duty or orders. She was asking to keep fighting because she found it enjoyable. Commander Vexthal, she reported, I believe we may have encountered something unprecedented. The humans appear to have evolved a psychological response to extreme stress that allows them to experience pleasure during life-threatening situations. That's impossible, Vexthal replied. No species can enjoy facing death. Sir, I recommend we begin detailed scans of human brain activity. If I'm correct, this species may be psychologically immune to the intimidation tactics that have worked on every other civilization we've encountered. As if to prove her point, the human fleet began another coordinated attack. This time, Captain Morrison's voice could be heard clearly across all frequencies. All right, people. They're bigger than us, they're stronger than us, and they've got better weapons. You know what that means? The response came from multiple human ships at once. It means we get to be the underdogs. The sound of human laughter filled the communication channels as the small fleet charged toward the massive alien armada. Dr. Kithvara watched in fascination and terror as an entire species seemed to treat certain death as entertainment. For the first time in her career, she began to wonder if the Zephyrian Empire had finally met an enemy they couldn't defeat. Admiral Ben Taylor stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, watching his fleet get torn apart by the alien armada. 4 more human ships had been destroyed in the last hour, leaving only 8 vessels to defend New Haven. Any reasonable military commander would have ordered a retreat by now. But as Taylor looked at the tactical display, he found himself grinning. Sir, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Kelly Roberts, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship. They're demanding our surrender again. Put them through, Taylor said, adjusting his uniform. The alien commander appeared on screen, his 4 arms moving in what the translation software indicated was extreme agitation. Human Fleet Commander, the message read, your resistance is pointless. You have lost over half your ships. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Taylor's smile grew wider. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but we're just getting started. The alien commander's image flickered with what appeared to be confusion. The transmission ended abruptly. On the Zephyrian flagship, Dr. Kithvara was frantically analyzing the latest psychological data. The human behavior patterns were becoming more extreme as the battle progressed. Instead of showing signs of demoralization from their losses, the remaining humans seemed to be getting more excited. Commander Vexthal, she reported, I'm detecting a significant increase in human adrenaline production. Their stress hormones are at levels that should be causing complete system shutdown, but instead they're becoming more active. Explain. This in terms I can understand, Vexthal demanded. Sir, imagine a species that becomes stronger and more focused when facing death. The humans appear to have evolved a biological response that floods their systems with performance-enhancing chemicals during extreme stress. What should disable them is actually making them more dangerous. Before Vextel could respond, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. A human assault team had somehow breached their outer hull. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos kicked in the door to the alien corridor, her rifle ready. Behind her, Sergeant Nick Johnson and Corporal Andy Miller spread out to cover the advance. All three humans were grinning widely as they moved through the enemy ship. "This is so cool," Johnson whispered. "We're actually inside an alien spaceship." "Stay focused," Santos replied, but her own smile was clearly visible. "Remember, we need to reach their shield generators. Andy, you take point." Miller nodded and moved forward, his weapon scanning for targets. "You know, when I joined the Marines, I never thought I'd get to fight aliens. This is like something out of a movie." The human boarding party moved through the ship's corridors with practiced efficiency. They had trained for ship-to-ship combat, but never against an enemy with completely different architecture. The ceilings were too high, the doorways were oddly shaped, and strange symbols covered the walls. "Contact front!" Miller called out as alien crew members appeared ahead of them. The Zephyrians were armed with energy weapons, but they seemed hesitant to engage the humans directly. Santos and her team opened fire, their projectile weapons cutting through the alien formation. What disturbed the Zephyrians most was not the effectiveness of the human weapons, but the sounds the humans were making. Instead of the focused silence of professional soldiers, the humans were talking and even laughing while they fought. "Nice shot, Nick," Santos called out after Johnson took down an alien warrior. "Thanks. Did you see how surprised he looked? I don't think they expected us to get this far." The alien crew members began falling back, their chemical signals indicating something the ship's sensors had never detected before: fear of an inferior enemy. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting on an alien ship with no hope of escape. Yet they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Dr. Kithvara monitored the boarding action from her laboratory. The human assault team had somehow penetrated deep into the ship, causing chaos among the crew. What made it worse was that the humans were broadcasting their communications on open channels. "Maria, there's another group of aliens around the corner," came Johnson's voice. "They've got some kind of energy shields." "No problem," Santos replied. "Andy, you still have those explosive charges?" "Yeah, but using them inside the ship could breach the hull. So, we're not planning on staying here anyway." The sound of human laughter echoed through the ship's communication system. Dr. Kithvara watched in horror as her own crew members began abandoning their posts. The psychological impact of fighting an enemy that seemed to welcome death was breaking down centuries of military discipline. "Commander," she reported to Vextel, "the human boarding party has reached Deck 7. Our crew is retreating from positions they should be able to hold easily." "How is that possible?" Vextel demanded. 3 humans against an entire ship's crew? "Sir, I believe our warriors are experiencing what humans would call demoralization. They cannot comprehend an enemy that fights with such apparent joy." On the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, Admiral Taylor was coordinating the remaining human ships for what everyone knew would be a final assault. The odds were hopeless, but the human crews seemed more energetic than ever. "All right, people," Taylor said over the fleet communication system. "We're down to 8 ships against 43 alien vessels. They've got superior firepower, better shields, and more experience. Anyone have a problem with that?" The response came from multiple ships at once. "No, sir." Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the radio from the damaged UES Defiant. "Admiral, my ship is pretty beat up, but we're still operational. What's the plan?" "We're going to do something they won't expect," Taylor said, his smile visible to his crew. "We're going to charge straight at their command ship and see how much damage we can do before they stop us." "Sounds perfect," came the response from Commander Alex Stone aboard the UES Falcon. "I was getting bored with all this long-range fighting anyway." Dr. Kithvara intercepted this transmission and immediately contacted Commander Vextel. Sir, the human fleet is planning a direct assault on our position. They're actually excited about conducting a suicide attack. Deploy all fighters, Vexthal. Ordered. Concentrate all firepower on their lead ships. We'll destroy them before they can get close. The Zephyrian fleet moved into defensive formation, their massive weapons turning toward the approaching human ships. Energy beams filled the space between the two fleets, but the humans kept coming. The UES Ranger exploded in a brilliant flash, but the remaining ships didn't even slow down. "This is Commander Stone," came a transmission from the UES Falcon. "My ship is taking heavy damage, but I'm still on course for the target. It's been an honor serving with you all." The UES Falcon's hull glowed white-hot from enemy fire, but Stone kept his ship aimed at the alien flagship. At the last moment, he activated his ship's self-destruct sequence. The explosion lit up the entire battle zone, causing significant damage to the alien command vessel. What horrified the Zephyrian crew was not the explosion itself, but Stone's final transmission. Right before his ship exploded, he could be heard laughing with genuine joy. "Did you see that?" Admiral Taylor's voice echoed across the remaining human ships. "Alex took out their main shield generator. Now we can really hurt them." Dr. Kithvara watched her own crew's psychological profiles deteriorate in real time. The humans' willingness to sacrifice themselves while apparently enjoying the experience was breaking down the mental defenses of warriors who had conquered 17 different star systems. "Commander," she reported to Vexthal, "I recommend we withdraw from this system immediately. The humans are not responding to our psychological warfare tactics because they appear to be immune to the fear of death." "Impossible," Vexthal replied. But his chemical signals showed he was beginning to doubt his own words. The human fleet continued their impossible charge, and with each ship they lost, the survivors seemed to fight with even more enthusiasm. Dr. Kithvara realized she was witnessing something that had never happened before in Zephyrian military history, an enemy that became more dangerous as they faced certain defeat. Commander Vexthal stood in the center of his command deck, watching his fleet fall apart. Not from enemy fire, though the humans had certainly done their share of damage. No, his fleet was crumbling from within as his own officers began to question everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Sir," reported Subcommander Malvek from the weapons station, "the cruiser Vexmore is requesting permission to withdraw from the front lines. Their captain claims his crew is suffering from combat fatigue." Vexthal's 4 arms moved in disbelief. "Combat fatigue? We've been fighting for less than 6 hours against a vastly inferior enemy. Sir, the human behavior patterns are affecting our crew morale. They've never faced an enemy that seems to enjoy dying." Dr. Kithvara looked up from her research station, her scales now a deep purple color that indicated extreme stress. "Commander, I've completed my analysis of human brain chemistry during combat. The results are disturbing." "Show me," Vexthal demanded. The main display changed to show complex brain scans of human fighters. Colorful patterns showed different areas of neural activity as the humans engaged in battle. "Sir, these scans show that humans experience what they call an adrenaline rush during extreme stress. Their brains release chemicals that actually make them feel pleasure while facing death." "That's impossible," Vexthal said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It gets worse, sir. The more stress they experience, the more of these chemicals their brains produce. Essentially, the closer they get to death, the better they feel." On the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, Admiral Taylor was down to just 4 ships, but his crew had never been more energetic. The remaining vessels were heavily damaged, their hulls scorched and their shields failing, but somehow they kept fighting. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Roberts, "we're getting reports from the other ships. The crews are actually requesting permission to attempt more dangerous maneuvers." Taylor laughed. "Of course they are. Tell them to go ahead. At this point, what's the worst that could happen?" Commander Tim Rogers aboard the UES Lightning responded immediately. "Admiral, my ship is barely holding together, but I think I can ram one of their big cruisers. My crew is actually excited about the idea." "Tim, that's certain death," Taylor replied. "I know, sir. That's what makes it so interesting." The used Lightning turned toward the nearest alien cruiser, its engines glowing bright blue as Rogers pushed them beyond their safety limits. The ship's hull began to crack from the stress, but Rogers kept accelerating. "This is Lightning to all ships," Rogers broadcast. "If anyone wants to see something really cool, watch this." The human ship slammed into the alien cruiser at full speed. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away, destroying both vessels instantly. But what disturbed the Zephyrian fleet most was the sound that came over the radio just before impact. Tim Rogers was laughing with pure joy. Dr. Kififara monitored the psychological impact of this event on her own crew. The readings were unlike anything in her databases. Zephyrian warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were showing signs of what could only be called terror. "Commander," she reported, 3 more ships are requesting permission to withdraw. Their crews are claiming they cannot fight an enemy that enjoys being destroyed. "Denied," Vextel said firmly. "We outnumber them 40-3 now. This battle will be over soon." But even as he spoke, Vextel could see the doubt in his crew's eyes. The humans had lost ship after ship, each one destroyed in increasingly spectacular ways. And yet the survivors seemed to be getting more excited with each loss. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communication channels from the badly damaged UES Defiant. "Admiral, we've lost engines and most of our weapons. But we're still here. What are your orders?" "Jake, your ship is dead in space. You should evacuate." "Sir, with respect, that's not going to happen. My crew has an idea, and I think you'll like it." Taylor could hear the excitement in Morrison's voice. "What kind of idea?" "Well, we can't move and we can't fight, but we still have our reactor. Chief Engineer Pete says he can overload it and create a really big explosion. We're thinking of using ourselves as a mine." "Jake, that's suicide." "Yes, sir, it is. But Pete says the explosion will be big enough to take out at least 2 of their ships, maybe 3 if we're lucky." Taylor could hear other voices in the background, Morrison's crew volunteering for what amounted to a suicide mission. What made it worse was that they sounded happy about it. "Sir," Morrison continued, "my crew took a vote. We all agree this is the best use of our ship. Besides, it'll be one hell of a way to go out." On the alien flagship, Dr. Kifvara was recording everything. "Commander, the humans are planning to use their damaged ship as a weapon. They're volunteering to die, just to damage our fleet." "All species fight to the death when cornered," Vextel replied, but his chemical signals showed uncertainty. "Sir, they're not fighting to the death. They're fighting because they want to die. There's a difference." The UES Defiant began moving slowly toward the alien formation, pushed by small maneuvering thrusters. Morrison's crew had rigged their reactor to explode on command, turning their ship into a massive bomb. "This is Morrison to all Zephyrian ships," came the transmission. "I want you to know that this has been the most fun my crew has had in years. Thanks for giving us such an interesting challenge." The alien fleet opened fire on the approaching ship, but Morrison had positioned his vessel perfectly. The energy beams that hit the UES Defiant only accelerated the reactor overload. "Tell my wife I love her," Morrison said over the radio. "And tell her I went out with a smile." The explosion lit up the entire system. The used Defiant's reactor overload created a chain reaction that destroyed 3 alien ships and severely damaged 2 others. The shockwave could be felt throughout both fleets. What horrified the Zephyrian crews was not the explosion itself, but Morrison's final transmission. Right before his ship exploded, he could be heard laughing with genuine happiness. "Did you see that?" came Admiral Taylor's voice from the UES Thunderbolt. "Jake took out half their front line. Now we've only got to deal with 37 ships instead of 40. Dr. Kifvara watched her psychological readings with growing horror. The human admiral was treating the complete destruction of his fleet as a victory. He was down to just 2 ships against nearly 40 alien vessels, and he sounded excited about the odds. "Commander," she reported, "I'm detecting mass desertion among our fighter pilots. They're refusing to engage the remaining human ships." "What do you mean, refusing?" "Sir, they're claiming the humans are not a natural species. They believe the humans are some kind of demon race that feeds on death and destruction. Vexthel looked at the tactical display. His massive fleet was still overwhelmingly superior to the two remaining human ships, but his crews were falling apart. Warriors who had served for decades were abandoning their posts rather than face an enemy that seemed to welcome annihilation. "Dr. Kithvara," he said slowly, "in your professional opinion, what kind of species are we fighting?" The xenobiologist looked at her data one more time. Her scales had turned almost black with stress. "Sir, I believe we have encountered a species that has evolved beyond our understanding of survival instincts. They appear to be psychologically immune to the fear of death." "And what does that mean for our conquest?" Dr. Kithvara paused before answering. "Sir, I don't think we can defeat them. Not because they're stronger than us, but because they don't fear losing. How do you intimidate a species that enjoys being destroyed?" The question hung in the air as the two remaining human ships continued their impossible fight against the Zephyrian Armada. Admiral Taylor's laughter echoed across the communication channels as he prepared for what everyone knew would be the final assault. Admiral Taylor stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, looking at a tactical display that should have filled him with despair. His fleet was down to two ships, his own Thunderbolt and Commander Katie Bell's UES Storm. They faced 37 alien vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Instead of despair, Taylor felt something he could only describe as pure joy. "Katie," he said over the communication system, "how's your ship holding up?" "Sir, we've lost half our weapons and our shields are down to 15%, but my crew is in great spirits. They want to know if we can try ramming one of those." "Big ships," Taylor laughed. "Tell them to be patient. We're going to do something even better." On the alien flagship, Commander Vexthel was receiving reports that made no sense. Half his fleet was refusing to engage the remaining human ships. His most experienced captains were claiming their crews were too demoralized to fight. "Sir," reported Sub-Commander Malvek, "the destroyer Kethval is requesting immediate evacuation back to home space. Their captain says his crew believes the humans are cursed." "Cursed?" Vexthel's forearms moved in disbelief. "They're a primitive species with inferior technology." Dr. Kithvara looked up from her monitoring station. "Commander, I've been analyzing the psychological impact of this battle on our forces. The results are unprecedented." "Explain." "Sir, our warriors are experiencing what humans would call a complete breakdown of military morale. They cannot comprehend fighting an enemy that seems to become happier as they face certain death." Vexthel studied the tactical display. By all logical measures, he had already won. The human fleet was destroyed, their colony was defenseless, and only two damaged ships remained. Yet somehow, those two ships felt more dangerous than the entire fleet had at the beginning of the battle. "Dr. Kithvara," he said slowly, "what happens when we destroy those last two ships?" The xenobiologist paused before answering. "Sir, based on human behavior patterns, I believe they will die laughing." The thought sent chemical signals of fear through Vexthel's system. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that treated death as entertainment. Admiral Taylor activated the fleet-wide communication system one last time. "Katie, I want you to know it's been an honor serving with you." "Same." "Here, sir, what's the plan?" "We're going to charge straight at their command ship." "No fancy maneuvers, no tricks? Just a straight-up attack against impossible odds? Sounds perfect," Bell replied. "My crew is already cheering." The two remaining human ships turned toward the alien flagship. Their engines glowed bright blue as they accelerated to maximum speed. Energy beams lanced out from the alien fleet, but the humans kept coming. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Roberts from the communications station, "we're receiving another surrender demand from the alien commander." "Put him through," Taylor said. Commander Vexthel appeared on the screen, his chemical signals indicating extreme agitation. "Human Admiral, this is madness. You have two ships against my entire fleet. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." Taylor's smile was visible to his entire crew. "Thank you for the offer, but we're having too much fun to quit now." "Fun?" The translation software struggled with Vextel's emotional state. You call this fun? Absolutely. When else are we going to get the chance to fight an alien armada? This is the kind of thing my grandchildren will read about in history books. You have no grandchildren. You're about to die, Taylor laughed. That's what makes it so exciting. The transmission ended abruptly as Vextel cut the communication. Dr. Kithvara watched the alien commander's psychological readings spike into dangerous territory. Commander, she said, I recommend we withdraw from this system immediately. Withdraw? From 2 damaged ships? Sir, look around you. Half our fleet is in psychological retreat. Our crews are terrified of an enemy they should be able to destroy without effort. If we continue this battle, we risk permanent damage to our warriors' ability to fight. The UES Thunderbolt shook as enemy fire concentrated on its hull. Admiral Taylor could see his ship's systems failing one by one, but his smile never wavered. Sir, reported Chief Engineer Major Steve Clark, we've lost main power. We're running on emergency systems only. How long until we reach their flagship? About 2 minutes, sir. But we won't survive that long under this kind of fire. Then we better. Make those 2 minutes count, Taylor said. Open a channel to the entire alien fleet. Lieutenant Roberts worked frantically at her damaged console. Channel open, sir, Taylor's voice echoed across both fleets. Attention all alien ships. I want you to know that this has been the best fight of our lives. Your people are brave warriors, and it's been an honor to face you in battle. On the alien flagship, Dr. Kithvara watched her crew's reaction to this transmission. Instead of the expected mockery or anger, she saw something she had never witnessed before, respect mixed with terror. Sir, she reported to Vextel, the human admiral is complimenting our warriors while his ship is being destroyed. That makes no sense. Commander, nothing about this species makes sense. They operate on psychological principles we don't understand. The U-storm exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its reactor overloading under the concentrated alien fire. But instead of demoralizing the remaining humans, Commander Bell's final transmission filled the communication channels with laughter. Admiral, she called out just before her ship exploded. This is the best way to go out. See you on the other side? Admiral Taylor felt his own ship beginning to break apart around him. The hull was glowing white-hot, systems were failing throughout the ship, and he could feel the deck shaking under his feet. Sir, reported Lieutenant Roberts, we're not going to make it to their flagship. I know, Taylor said. But we got a lot closer than they expected. He activated the ship's self-destruct sequence. All hands, this is the Admiral. It's been an honor serving with you all. Let's give them something to remember us by. The UES Thunderbolt exploded just 500 meters from the alien flagship. The blast wave damaged several nearby ships and caused the command vessel to lose power temporarily, but what really broke the Zephyrian fleet was Admiral Taylor's final transmission. Right before his ship exploded, his voice came over the radio one last time. Tell everyone back home that we went out smiling. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Across the alien fleet, crews began abandoning their posts. Captains reported complete breakdowns in military discipline. Some ships simply turned around and left the system without orders. Commander Vextel stood in his darkened command center, watching his fleet fall apart. Dr. Kithvara approached him carefully. Sir, I have the final psychological analysis of the human species. Tell me. Commander, I believe we have encountered a species that cannot be conquered through traditional means. They appear to be immune to the fear of death that has allowed U.S. to defeat every other civilization. Vextel looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was completely destroyed. The colony below was defenseless, and by all rights he should be preparing for the occupation of another world. Instead, he found himself facing the complete psychological collapse of his own forces. Dr. Kithvara, what do you recommend? Sir, I recommend we classify this species as Category Omega, too dangerous to engage. Not because of their technology, but because of their psychology. Vextel made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships withdraw from the system immediately. Set course for home space. Sir, what about the colony? Leave it alone. Spread the word throughout the Empire. Humanity is not to be contacted under any circumstances. As the Zephyrian fleet retreated, Dr. Kithvara compiled her final report. The humans had lost every ship and every battle, yet somehow they had won the war. Their secret weapon was not advanced technology or superior tactics. It was their ability to smile while facing certain death, the legend of the smiling warriors. Spread throughout the Zephyrian Empire within months. Other alien civilizations heard the story and decided to avoid human space entirely. A buffer zone formed around Earth and its colonies, maintained not by military force, but by the psychological terror of facing an enemy that enjoyed fighting impossible odds. Years later, when human explorers ventured into alien space, they found entire civilizations that would flee at the first sight of a human smile. The galaxy had learned to fear the species that laughed in the face of death. The humans never understood why the aliens were so afraid of them. After all, they were just doing what came naturally, finding joy even in the darkest moments. To them, that was not a weapon. It was simply being human.